A very good evening to all of you. I am Prakhar Garg and I'm the Program Director at TCS ION Channel and will be your host for today's webinar. On behalf of TCS ION, I welcome you all to the webinar on Design Your Future for Science Students. In today's webinar, we'll talk about what career options are available to students who have taken PCB or PCM streams. It seems fairly straightforward, isn't it? But then there is more that meets the eye. Because choosing a subject is just an entry point into a wide array of careers, and it means not that you have chosen one career, one streams, you cannot enter the other field. Because jobs have changed significantly in last 10 to 20 years with influx of technology, and that is across sector. Say if you take an example of healthcare, the whole sector is using devices and technologies in every area. And thus have a significant interaction with the technology experts. While at the same time, given the healthcare sector and hospitals, we would still be needing doctors. In fact, the job has changed so much, technology has come in so much that today we have robots doing medical surgeries. There are a lot of eye surgeries that are being done by robots. Expert doctors are there to guide them. Soon we might be noticing more surgeries being done by robots. All of these are possible for the future professionals once you have entered into the PCB stream to get into the good understanding of human body, or PCM stream to get good understanding of technology. That is where today's session is going to be really interesting, because while we talk something about the existing careers that are there, the more known careers, the more conventional careers, we'll also talk about what new age options, what new age approaches and opportunities are there for students who have taken or plan to take science. To get into an established career as doctor or engineer, you need some 5 to 8 years, even while you are in class 12th. So we feel that is a very long time to take a decision straight away from now. And therefore, here we'll discuss about taking the first step, the initial step of getting into a good stream and then again choosing the appropriate career paths for yourself. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce our guest speaker today, Mr. John Thomas. John is a senior counselor and mentor trainer at iDream Career. He is also lead for growth and learning in IDC. IDC is our very valued partner and has been helping out us, and we have been creating a very important and beautiful tool that is Compass, TCS ION Compass, which has come out recently. So iDream Career is the largest unbiased career counseling venture that works with 2.5 million students every year. iDream Career currently works with over 73,000 schools across India and Middle East, apart from working with 12 state governments including Delhi, Andhra Pradesh, Haryana, Rajasthan, Karnataka, amongst others. iDream Careers works as on-guard force for various international agencies such as UNDP, UNICEF, Center Square Foundation, and more, helping provide quality career guidance to unprivileged students. John is a senior counselor, mentor, trainer, and lead growth and learning in iDream Career. John is having an experience of over 11 years in learning and development with over 6 years dedicated to career counseling. Though he studied to become a chef, his own confusion while choosing the right career led to work in training and learning in firms like Wipro. Post this, he wanted to shift his focus on schools, where he felt that is where the most impact could he make in helping young adults to become employable and contributing members of the society. He has been spearheading counseling with character development programs with some of the most prestigious schools across the country. We welcome you, John. It is an honor to have you here with us. So let us now listen to John, who will guide us through how to look into these new age careers and how to plan for them. Over to you, John.
Thank you. Thank you for the welcome, Prakhar, and thank you for allowing us to do these sessions with you. I wish to cover certain careers in sciences, and I want to begin the session by with a few pointers. Number one, in most of the streams that we study in 11th and 12th, you're often given the choice of taking either biology or mathematics. Sometimes students who are a little more adventurous take in bio and maths. However, that tends to be a pressure cooker option for many students, and though it does keep more number of options open to you after school, it does become a challenge for a lot of students. Brackets of careers. So in many parts of India, the term is called medical, and non-medical is called this is the name of the stream that is technically used in many places. Though that does that doesn't do enough justice to the stream, because it only limits that stream to those specific careers. I would say there are a lot more careers that go beyond the standard that a lot of us actually are aware of. And having said that, some of the careers that you will be looking at are only available through certain courses. Now, the courses and the careers might not always be the same. I'll tell you about what type of courses that you can look at after class 12, what kind of specialization the areas you can look at. But to begin with all of that, majorly in sciences, there are two types of careers available. You have application sciences and research. Application sciences are the ones where you're using existing knowledge to solve problems. Engineers, doctors are examples of application sciences. Research-based careers are the ones where you're trying to find out solutions for problems that exist now, but the solutions don't exist yet. So you're looking for more information that is probably not there on your textbook. So any of you who are very curious, who have the capacity to be really patient as well, can look at careers in research also. However, we do need to keep in mind that not all careers in science will help you get a job right away. There are certain careers that will help you, bag a placement earlier, and some which will do it later. So you can decide some of those courses that you want to pursue basis how soon you want to get a job as well. I'm sure getting a job might not be everyone's agenda right after graduation. Some of you may want to go deeper, may want to go into masters, and I would say that there's a lot more value in pursuing the masters and then looking for employability options as well. Now, having said that, uh, research-based careers are usually very interdisciplinary. I'll give you an example. I hope you can see my kurta is orange. Now, why is my kurta orange? If I ask a physics student, if I ask a chemistry student, and if I ask a bio student, I probably will get different answers. The physics student might tell me how the light bounces off my shirt. The bio student talks about my eye, to what type of fabric was used. The chemistry student would focus on the kind of dyes and how they actually attach themselves, or those molecules attach themselves to the fabric. Now, I have three different answers for the same shirt. So usually research is like that. Research is usually interdisciplinary, where you'll have multiple subjects coming back together. So you can't let go of a certain subject saying that I don't like this subject, but I'll go into research, because it will come back to bite you in some sense or the other. What I mean to say is that in the long term, you will have all the subjects in sciences that are absolutely necessary. And in some cases, taking both bio and maths, like I said earlier, might be necessary as well. Uh, and oftentimes, the specializations that you want to go for may not be available in graduation. They may be available to you after your graduation is done, at your master's, sometimes even after that as well. So, exactly the courses that you look for example, if you're looking at physics, chemistry, and maths, engineering is one of the major reasons why people choose in physics, chem, and maths, but there are many other careers that you can do with PCM as well. I will be talking about merchant navy, architecture, careers in research in astrophysics and material sciences. Interestingly, astrophysics usually is not available to you in graduation. It's a specialization area, and sometimes it is something that is pursued only while you're doing a PhD. So when I say that, you will not find a BSc astrophysics course that easily available. You'll find a BSc physics or a BSc mathematics that could probably take you there. Environmental sciences as well. You have a mix of courses that can actually take you in a place where you can work for the environment. Information technology ideally falls under engineering in some sense. Uh, Agriculture, some of you may be surprised to see agriculture here, but the good news is agriculture is a career that can be pursued from both PCM and PCB subjects. I will cover that in detail in the subsequent slides as well. And of course, there are certain other areas like nanotechnology that you have very few courses available to you at the UG level, but nanotechnology kind of opens up more options at the PG level. Nanotechnology is, just to give you an example, you might have seen applications to nanotech in everyday life. For example, the glasses that I'm wearing, they call it scratch resistant. It is because of the kind of coating done thanks to nanotech. If I'm wearing a wrinkle free shirt, to the way my wall is painted, to the way airplanes are painted so that you feel less jet lag, to the way Surf Excel or detergent is made, a lot of that actually involves nanotechnology as well. In fact, even in medicines as well, nanotech is being used now. And I will probably discuss them in some detail in the subsequent slides as well. So one of the first things to remember is when you're looking at physics, chemistry, and maths, it might not be always easy to figure out which stream I want to go for, which course I want to go for after 12. It's important to focus on the chapters that you enjoy in these subjects. So some of the popular chapters that are there, I've just shown it to you on the screen. It's not the complete list of chapters that you'll be studying in 11th and 12th, and I think the 11th and 12th graders can testify to that. But it's important to know which chapters you enjoy more. That will kind of open up, specialization areas for you, or help you decide if I want to go in for engineering, which type of engineering would actually be good for me, or which type of engineering would I actually enjoy learning. So it's important to focus on these chapters as well. And if there are certain chapters that are necessary for certain courses that you're looking for, so it is important for you to fix those chapters or work on those chapters a lot as well. Now, directly jumping into engineering, of course, I'm sure most of you know about the various fields in engineering right now. There are some areas here that might not be available to you in graduation. For example, nuclear engineering is not a BTech course available to you in any college in India, but usually students can study electrical or power engineering and pursue that in their masters or specialize in that later. Robotics and mechatronics are fairly new specialization areas. Why am I talking about these specialization areas is because almost all engineers will have to take various entrance exams. The common, central entrance exam is JEE. If you intend to go for the IITs, the NITs, they have the same entrance exam for that. The IITs want you to score well in JEE Advanced as well. But having said that, often what happens is, given that for JEE, you have 9.5 lakh students sitting for the exam. And if you calculate the number of seats across the country, you have roughly about 14 lakh engineering seats. If you add the other common entrance exams as well for private colleges and stuff, you will roughly have more number of seats of engineering than there are people who apply. But all the seats in engineering aren't great, and you're often stuck with the choice whether because depending on the ranking that you get for these entrance exams, you then get the choice of college, and thereby you get the choice of which specialization area you want to go into. So sometimes rankings kind of decide what stream you would go into. So the higher the rank, the more options you have. Usually, the top rankers in JEEs advanced usually go for software, mechanical, and electrical, electronic. These are the more popular ones. Robotics, mechatronics have started. There are courses that are starting off with AI as well, and I would say it could have started a little sooner. But having said that, all of these streams that you see here are dependent on few of the subjects that you kind of enjoy in 11th and 12th, whether you're looking at subjects in chemistry that you've seen in the last page, or physics, or mathematics. You would see another entrance exam or another entrance process mentioned here called TES. TES, or the Technical Entry Scheme, is meant for students who want to pursue engineering but are okay with joining the armed forces. The armed forces gives you the option of pursuing engineering and focuses on specialization areas like mechanical, electronics, electrical, and communication. It is merit based, where you have to get at least a 75% and above. Then merit based, they actually check you in, and you have a 4-year BTech program that you can even study in the armed forces with almost zero the cost, and also guaranteed a job or a placement right after it. Now, having said that, most of colleges also have placements. I wanted to actually showcase some of the various entrance exams that are available. So any student who's looking at pursuing engineering, you can at least take in multiple entrance exams so that you have multiple opportunities to perform. The syllabus is not too different between all of these courses. It's only based on PCM mostly, and the only exception I would say is for BITSAT, for Birla Institute of Technology, where they do have an English option as well. Otherwise, you would see the PCM syllabus is based on what students study in CBSE and ISE and the state boards at 11th and 12th. It's not very different from there. So if you look at all of these areas, it's important to know A, what are the chapters I enjoy, and B, what are the kind of places I want to go and work in. if there are some of you in class 10 deciding between should I take a physics, chemistry, bio, or a physics, chemistry, maths, sometimes the questions that you might have to ask yourself is, do I like working with living organisms more, or do I like working with machines more? If I like working with machines more, then preferably PCM is a better option. It does keep more options open that way. If you want to work with living organisms more, then of course, physics, chemistry, and bio makes more sense. Some of the areas that are not so common, like I mentioned earlier, aeronautical engineering, not very commonly available at the bachelor's, but you would find more options at master's. But having said that, if you want to work, with organizations like ISRO or NASA, they have a wide variety of team members that are working in. They have mathematicians, physicists, they have rocket engineers, they have botanists as well. In fact, NASA has a team called xenobiologists, people who study the possibility of life on different planets. So the you might not find the exact subject that you want in grad, but you will find, in some sense, you can find some of these areas in masters as well. Interestingly, textile engineering is something that we did not think much highly of when we were in school. I have a batchmate from school who has pursued textile engineering and currently is working with Audi in Germany designing seat belts. So, while I've only showed you about 8 or 9 types, you probably have about close to about 20 or 25 different fields that are there. Not all of those fields are available to you at grad, but they can be available to you at a later stage as well. Now, for students who are looking at engineering as a course, please focus on two fundamental areas, which is, am I good with physics, chemistry, maths, and am I good with problem solving? Usually, engineers are problem solvers, so that's a good place to start with. However, uh, the reality of the story is that now, in a country like India, I live in a city called Bangalore. A lot of engineers that I've seen in Bangalore itself are not pursuing the stream or the specialization that they studied in. Uh, and I think one of the biggest perpetrators of that is the IT sector. I myself have worked in the IT sector. This IT sector is kind of open to hiring people from any form of engineering as long as computer science was part of your syllabus for the 4 years. So that way, you always have an option for software and IT, no matter which stream you're going for. Though slowly there are organizations that are waking up to this and prefer students who have specialized in certain subjects that they want to get into. Now, having said that, there's another part to this as well. We have probably often heard about merchant navy. Merchant navy originally used to have two primary areas of study, which was marine engineering and nautical science. Marine engineering is where people have a 4-year BTech course. The entrance exam is called IMU CET, which is Indian Maritime University Common Entrance Test. Uh, if you are studying marine engineering, you're responsible for the maintenance of the ship, the machinery on the ship as well, and port docking mechanisms there as also. There is another 4-year course in BTech Naval Architecture if you're interested in designing ships. So some of you are really good at mathematics, really good at sketching, can look at naval architecture as an option. Interestingly, the B Arch program is a 5-year program, but the BTech Naval Architecture program is a 4-year course. Uh, and if you want to become the captain of the ship, being responsible for safety and navigation, BSc Nautical Science is a 3-year course that you can go for through IMU CET, which is the entrance exam. You can also go for a 1-year diploma course in nautical sciences as well through the same entrance test. Also, if there is someone who does not want to study for 3 years. However, the more number of opportunities and the better pay is always given to someone who's completed nautical science. So, in essence, someone who's completed nautical science can grow up to the level of being captain of the ship. Someone who studied marine engineering can go to the level of being chief engineer. So these are the two major areas. Apart from which, you have courses in BSc in shipbuilding and repair. You have BBA in logistics, retailing, and e-commerce as well that these courses offer you. For some of the students who actually want to travel the world, I think this is a fantastic career to go into. Uh, though the disadvantage is that you will be away from your family for extended periods of time. Now, that for some of you could be a good thing or a bad thing. Uh, it does pay you pretty well as well. Your stay and your food on the ship, as long as you're traveling with that ocean liner or wherever you're transporting your goods to, because marine merchant navy is primarily about transporting goods from one place to another on the sea. So as long as you're with the ship, your pay and your food and your stay is kind of taken care of. So a lot of my friends who are in this space say that there's a lot of savings. Uh, you are taxed very differently as well, meaning you're also taxed very lesser than people who are actually working on the land. You also have the opportunity of having extended holidays also, because whenever my friends come over to India, they're here for about 3 to 4 months or 2 months, at least a month, if not for anything else. I don't know of any other job apart from teaching that gives you longer breaks. So that's about merchant navy. Uh, so some of you who like mathematics, who like physics, who like drawing, can look at architecture as well. Now, architecture is a 5-year program. I've often seen students, shy away from architecture because they think they're not really great at drawing. The good news is architecture does not focus on people your ability to paint and shade. It's focusing more on ratios and geometric design. So a lot of your drawing will now be done with the assistance of a computer-aided design system. So even if you're not Pablo Picasso's grandchild, if you're not great at sketching, you can still go into architecture. But you need to like sketching in some sense, because your entrance exams for architecture, which is between NATA and JE paper 2, they will have elements of drawing and sketching in it. They will have, of course, elements. NATA also has a part of called architectural GK as well, or architectural general knowledge. However, if you want to go and pursue architecture at the two IITs that offer it, at Kharagpur and Roorkee, then the process is slightly different. You complete JE paper 1, you go to JE advanced, and then you take the architectural aptitude test. So in essence, there are three types of exams that you can go for. NATA and paper 2 is the most popular entrance exams for architecture. And some of the best colleges in the country, of course, while I didn't mention that for engineering, I'm sure for engineering you already know about the kind of areas available. But if you're looking at architecture, SPA Delhi, SPA Bhopal are one of the best places to study it. Sir JJ College in Bombay, Chandigarh College of Architecture, or Chandigarh University as well, JNA FAU at Hyderabad, the NITs, Jamia Millia, Ramaya at Bangalore, NMIMS at Bombay are some of the best places that you can go and pursue it. Uh, and of course, I probably had missed this for engineering. I just wanted to inform that if you are looking at engineering as a course, then all your entrance exams that you take, you have to target the top 80,000 seats in the country. Though, like I said earlier, that you have more number of seats in engineering than people who apply, all the seats aren't great seats. Meaning, what I have seen is the top 80,000 to 90,000 are really great seats to aspire for. Uh, Beyond that, you have tier 2 colleges. Beyond that, you have tier 3 and tier 4 colleges that you would get basis ranks. So, any of these areas that you're looking at, please take the time to prepare for the entrance exams. It is very, very important. For architecture, the good part is you can take the NATA exam even in class 11, and the scores of the NATA exam is valid for 2 years. So you might not have to worry about taking the entrance exam again if you have a really great score. But having said that, do not take the test before you have prepared very well, because if you take multiple times NATA multiple times, your scores kind of get averaged out. So you have got to be a little careful about that. But having said that, the very interesting courses in architecture. In fact, I was listening to a college professor the other day who was saying that for history and for architects, uh, there's another new industry that is hiring the most number of people from this sector. It's the gaming industry. So all the maps that you see on various games, all the planning, all the towns that you see are that are being depicted on those games as well. A lot of this is done by guys who are in architecture and planning. I haven't mentioned what planning is. Now, I know that you guys have probably seen the last page and seen something called civil engineering here. Civil engineering and architecture are kind of different courses. Engineers kind of execute a plan. Architects plan how a building is supposed to be made, but civil engineers are the guys who decide, what type of foundation you can use, what type of materials you can use, how far should your pillars be away from each other so that you have structural integrity. So civil engineers kind of execute the plan, architects design the plan. People who are working in planning, uh, I'm not sure if all the audience might have seen it, but some of you who have metro systems, subway systems in your cities, the subway system at Delhi, at Bangalore, at any other city where it's functioning, was basically the brainchild of three different types of careers: civil engineers, architects, and planners. Planners kind of are the people who will decide where to put put a certain station in. Does it have enough number of people around that area so that I can put a station here? Is it worth, using this route to actually build the corridor for the metro? Uh, and how much of traffic will it block? So these are all things that planners usually do. Uh, you can take the JE paper 2 for planning as well as a course. SPA Delhi Bhopal have planning as a course as well. So, for some of you interested in subjects like mathematics, I think Parmita might have mentioned a career called Actuarial Sciences, which has an entrance exam called ACET. If you are interested in maths, of course, data analytics tends to be one of the careers that many students keep asking about. Though data analytics essentially is not a course, students would be better served to study a BSc mathematics, statistics, or in economics. Uh, Other areas for people who love mathematics, you can go into programming and coding as well. Usually, maths is dependent on your class 12 marks, where most of the colleges will look at your 12th merit, your 12 board marks, and then let you in. But ISI, which has various centers across India, they have more than the ones that you see here on the screen. But Calcutta, Delhi, Bangalore, and Chennai are the main ones where you can take in the ISI aptitude test and apply that. Central University Common Entrance Test also could allow students who are willing to study and teach mathematics as well. You have a combined BSc B.Ed degree in mathematics also, so you can save a little bit of time if you're looking at teaching mathematics too. Now, before I move into the next part, I just wanted to bring you back to this segment here. Uh, if you're looking at careers like material sciences, like astrophysics, it is better to pursue either engineering or pure physics right now. It can take you there. Mathematics. If you're looking at environmental sciences, you can still study chemical engineering and still get there. You can study, BSc in environmental sciences, which is not a very common course, but you can study BSc chemistry as well and still work in sustainability and environmental sciences. You can study, through biology as well. You can go and impact this career. Moving on, if you're looking at the information technology cluster, uh, a lot of smaller IT firms today are looking beyond engineering grads to hire coders and programmers. Technically speaking, while a lot of courses will teach you certain programming language, I think in CBSE you guys have already access to Python. There are certain people I know who have studied programming languages outside the graduation degree and are working as coders and programmers right now. So most of the guys that I know in IT who are working in smaller organizations have said that they are far more open-minded. As long as you know the language very well, you can still work in this space. Agricultural technology, there are careers in agricultural engineering as well, which is an offset of mechanical engineering. You can perhaps pursue a PCM, go into mechanical engineering, and if you want to work in areas where you're functioning primarily with agricultural equipment, so all the really large combined harvesters you see, uh, all the equipment that you see that is used in agri tech, uh, will be something that you can actually work with. And of course, specialization courses like nanotechnology and so on, I have already mentioned. Uh, if you're looking at pursuing this in research, it is best that you actually be patient enough to wait till your PhD to actually decide what type of research you want to do. Because sometimes in class 11 and 12, it becomes a little difficult to decide that. Uh, I would always say that if there is any area of science that you're interested in, always go deeper. It will always open up more and more options for you. I would always say that speak to your seniors in school who have passed out, who have pursued these courses in college. Talk to your teachers as well, because sometimes you will also get to hear a lot of interesting courses that come out from there.
Thank you, John. Those were really interesting career options that you have shared with us. So I was actually reading some article somewhere that about 30 lakh students who have to take CBSE class 12th examination every year. Almost 17 lakh students go in for medical and engineering section. That I think that is where you mentioned there are a lot of seats available because of this much count of students. But then again, the opportunity for the top creamy layer will only be there. Otherwise, the remaining students might be kind of underachiever in their careers. So they have to actually reevaluate their options, which specific engineering, which specific course option they should go even after 12.
Right.
So that was quite an interesting point that you have mentioned. I'm getting a question from student. I think so the question is, if say someone wants to go in for management studies, MBA after their engineering, so is there any specific engineering branch they should opt for?
I think it should be looked at the other way around. The MBA, because it's open to you from any stream, the MBA should not help you decide what engineering stream you should take. You should first decide what type of engineering stream you want to take, because you can do whatever MBA you want to do after that. So it's more important to decide the chapters that you enjoy right now and what type of engineering you want to do. because in MBA you have courses ranging from finance to operations and IT. Many engineers I know prefer operations and IT because that's the kind of space they want to go into. So the MBA program kind of helps you manage people, but the core of that, that knowledge that you should have to understand how a manufacturing unit runs, what is the core of that functioning, for that the engineering course is very important. So I would say that the MBA is secondary. The first stepping stone to actually getting there is the engineering course. So focus on what type of engineering course you're looking at. But given that MBA courses are open to all, they don't care if you studied chemical engineering or metallurgical or operation or software and IT. So if you like programming, you like mathematics, you like algorithms, then programming becomes the obvious choice. Then you can go in from any area. You can probably study an MBA finance as well and work in fintech companies. So the combinations kind of open up like that. But I would always say that given that MBA is at least 4 years after you to pursue your engineering course, I think the first step is to decide which is the best engineering course to take right now. Another offset to your question is which I will like to say is that there are often questions about how should I take the course of my choice, or should I take the college of my choice? Which I think a lot of engineers probably had faced this problem, that I did not get the course that I wanted in the college that I wanted. So should I sacrifice that? The answer to that question is usually that if you're looking for placements from the college itself, then choosing the college over the course makes more sense. But that's a short-term impact. It's only the placement that will be great. But if you're looking at the long term that you want to, pursue in this area, let's say if I'm interested in software and IT, and I got a really good seat in a really good college, but for petroleum, which is not my interest area at all. Those 4 years are going to be really problematic for me. So, which is why, to answer your question, I would say it's very, very important to get the right course and prepare for that, because the MBA after that is you will be better placed if you're actually looking at a job after engineering, work a couple of years, then decide whether what type of MBA you want to do, because that will help you decide as well. Maybe those sometimes there are students who get into the space that they have studied for and then realize, okay, this is not meant for me. I want to diversify, go somewhere else. I want to work in HR, or I want to work in finance or sales, or I want to work in operations and IT. Operation and IT usually is the more popular choice for engineering students. But I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, I think that should have answered the question. So Rohita was the person who asked this question. So Rohita, I hope you must have received your answer. And I would suggest you to, as John mentioned, you go in and choose your engineering subject first, and then as and when you are completing your engineering in 4 years, you would be in a better position to understand which particular combination works fine with your engineering as well as MBA. I think that should be a right approach.
Yeah.
So thank you, John. I have another question that is coming from Tanu Bhan. She's saying she's from class 9th, and I want to join Indian Army and also study science as in engineering. Many people say that why I'm wasting a seat in engineering when I can study anything to join it. What is the better or correct option for me?
So if you want to join the Air Force or the Navy, it is important that you take in the science courses. Let's say if you want to become a wingman at the Air Force, because now ladies also can fly the jet fighter, right? Most of the ones who are working in that space, if you're wanting to be a wingman or a wingwoman, then better to go for the BTech course. You're not wasting a seat at all because you're learning something. As long as you're putting the learning to use, I would say that you're not wasting a seat. It's only when you're not putting that learning to use. Let's say you're saying that I want to do an engineering, then I intend to do a MBA in sales and marketing, but never I want to study in engineering at all. If you know that already, then you're probably wasting a seat. If you're intending to learn something from it, I don't think it's a waste at all. Otherwise, there are other courses like you can go and do law, you can do psychology, you can do medicine, and still join the armed forces as a lady after your graduation is done. You can become a nurse as well, you can become a dentist as well. There are many options there. But you would want to join the army in the best capacity that you feel you're fit in, right? If biology is not your subject and PCM is your subject, then it becomes your obvious choice that you want to go in for engineering and then join the armed forces. I'm completely confident that it won't be a bad choice if you really are using that learning to use.
So thank you. I hope that certainly answers the question. There are certain questions that are coming with respect to tests required for ISRO, DRDO, BAC. Can you please put some light on that?
Right. So while DRDO has its own research programs as well, they have certification programs and such. But if you're looking at employment at ISRO and DRDO, then they definitely have tests for that for employment. Now you would have to actually look at what type of tests they are, what do they cover, because usually employment tests are not easily available in the public domain. It's usually that you will find course-based entrance exams that you will easily find in the public domain. But for jobs, it'll be slightly more complicated. But uh, if your question is more towards what do I study to get into ISRO and DRDO, you can do engineering, you can study theoretical physics, you can study biology. For example, in NASA, they also have psychologists as well who work, because the astronauts who actually go into space, they have to mentally prepare themselves for a completely different experience. Like few things that we can take for granted, for example, gravity, right? If you go to the International Space Station, uh, a lot of your bodily functions kind of change. You have to prepare yourself mentally and physically for it. So these kind of space research organizations, they have a lot of departments that actually work there. But you would still have to work on what type of graduation course you want to do right now, because they don't offer graduation programs. So if you're looking at employment there, yes, definitely there is an interview plus an entrance test. And you'll have to probably check that online, because there is no common syllabus that they have said in the public domain that we are going to ask you about these questions. On the other hand, for courses, they are actually required to explain what is the entrance exam going to be like. So if you're looking to work in these areas, as of right now, better to focus on engineering as a course. Look at which type of engineering. Usually mechanical, electrical, electronic guys are the most in number in these spaces.
Thank you, John. So, John, just like in the previous webinar, Pamita was discussing about some neutral careers that are there. The careers which students from both arts, commerce students can take. Similarly, there are some careers which even science students can come in and pitch in those careers themselves. So maybe can we put some specific light on those careers which are available out there for science students?
Sure. So for interdisciplinary science courses, I will talk to you about ones that are available in the science domain and outside the science domain as well. So outside the science domain, you have careers like law, where you can work in from IPR law, intellectual property rights. You will have to be a science student to be able to pursue IPR law. You have to have science till class 12. And preferably, if you take a BSc LLB course or a BLLB course, also you can go in. But you have to have a science background for that. Similarly, there are places like energy law as well. While energy law is open to you from any stream, uh, people who have specialized in energy law, I've spoken to some of them and they've told me that if I knew how power is generated, I can probably help with the tariff system better. Or if someone is exploiting a certain state, or they're charging citizens of a certain state a higher amount, if I know how energy is generated per unit, I know the technicals of it, I can actually fight those cases a little better. That knowledge never goes for waste. Now, coming to the science specific courses which are interdisciplinary, agriculture is one of them which already accepts PCM, PCB students both. Biotechnology is again PCM, PCB, both areas you can go in from. If you take the mathematics, you have BTech, Biotech that is available to you. Nanotechnology again is some of the students who are interested in nanotech should definitely watch YouTube videos by Richard Feynman on nanotechnology. Nanotechnology was talked about at least 50 or 60 years ago, right? Now we think about it as a futuristic career, but in reality, nanotechnology, all of these elements were stuff that people talked about many, many years ago, at least 40, 50 years ago. And it's only now that we have the kind of technology to be able to teach those courses in school. We have equipment which is cheap enough to bring to college as well, because sometimes because certain equipment is too expensive, some colleges are not able to afford very advanced equipment. But I still feel a lot of colleges in India do have very good labs. So whether you're today, I'll give you an example of my own sister who is doing research in cancer. She wanted to become a doctor, did not get a medical seat, did microbiology, did biotech in masters, and is doing a PhD from IISc Bangalore in biochemistry. So she is trying to figure out a solution to how cancer could be killed or could be worked on through medication. In her team, there are engineers who work, there are mathematicians, there are people who come with a background in BSc zoology. There are people who come with a background in medicine. So she told me that my research team is basically a team of people who have different specialization areas, that they have different things to offer. Otherwise, the whole research will not function. So if you're looking at research in the long term, most types of research are interdisciplinary sciences. That if I'm, let's say I want to work with medicines, it doesn't mean that physics and chemistry is not going to impact how I make medicines. Chemistry is a very important part of the kind of chemicals you put in that medicine. But physics also is very important because heat, light, energy, electricity, how they impact living cells, I have to know that as well. Right. So in that sense, I would say anyone who's looking at research in the long term, all types of research will expect you to have expertise in all the sciences in some sense or the other. But of course, yes, you have nanotech, pharmacology, where biomaths, bioinformatics, where biomaths both is important. Uh, Biotechnology, biomaths is both is important. So you have many areas like that that could open up. If there are students who are thinking about it, that I want to have an exposure in multiple areas, uh, especially if you're in class 9 and 10, uh, please ensure your basics in science and mathematics this year is fixed or this year is fine so that the 11th and 12th syllabus you can pursue should you want to do something as challenging as PCMB. So when you're looking at interdisciplinary courses, I would say that better to keep maths and bio both if you're able to do it. It's not a cup of tea for everybody. Sometimes I know there are certain students who take on challenges like I will try for NEET and engineering both. And I know a very few handful of students who are able to crack both. Not everybody can. So, to that sense, I would say that science, by its own nature, is an interdisciplinary area. You can't only study physics and go in there. Like any physicist today will tell you that, I need to understand why a certain gas burns at a certain temperature, so that I know how far that star is from this galaxy. So they need to understand chemistry as well if I want to go for astrophysics. So that way, usually the answers that I get from most of the guys who are into science and who are scientists, who are researchers right now, they say that please tell students that, because they made these mistakes as well. I know some of the guys from my own school who told me that if I would have studied this subject better in school, I think now I would not have so many problems when I'm doing research. So all of them, they tell me the same thing that please take all the subjects very seriously now because these basics are very, very essential so that you're able to do well later. So there are multiple departments that open up, and most of these areas will open up to you at this masters, at the PG level. At graduation, unfortunately, I know that while it might seem that there are many courses available, masters you have far more number of courses available. You have PG diploma courses as well, which are short term. You have long term courses. You have PhD options, of course, but it keeps diversifying the longer you study the subject. So there will be a point where the student can decide, okay, I want to study only this specific area. At PhD, you can decide that you want to study only this area. You can focus only on that. But still there, you will have multiple subjects coming together.
Right, right. Precisely. That was very insightful, actually. Thank you, John, for that. There was some point you were brushing upon when you were saying for students who are in class 9th and 10th, they should actually look out for kind of a wider spectrum right now with respect to PCMB. Still it being a challenging subject, but they can still look out for. There are questions with respect to choosing boards as well for pursuing their class 11th and 12th. I have a question from Suhas Bharadwaj who is saying, which board should I take after class 10th? Should I take the state board or CBSE board? As they are both advantages and disadvantages of these. Can you please help me, sir? And he is studying from PUC, state board.
Pre-university college, okay.
Yeah.
So that's a very good question. That's a very common question I also get as a counselor. There is probably no right and wrong answer to that question, but I'll give you the purpose of how the curriculum was designed. When you look at the curriculum, how it is designed for science, whether you're looking at the state board or the CBSE board or the ISC board, it is all designed in a way that you can still take the JEE exam. You can still take the common entrance exam no matter what board you go for. Because the test is designed by the NTA, which is the National Testing Agency. They have given a very stringent syllabus that, okay, if you want your students to pursue engineering, this is the course syllabus that I want students to be prepared for. So all the boards have identical syllabus for science, whether you go for state or you go for CBSE. However, there are some states that give you a preference if you have taken the state board, but not all states have that option. Some states, let's say if you want to be eligible for as a domicile, let's say in Delhi also, they have a very strict rule because a couple of years ago, I came to know that certain parts of Gurgaon, if you're staying in, you will not fall under the Delhi domicile. So depending on which part of the city or which part of the state you're staying in, it doesn't really matter if you're taking a certain board or the other, as long as you've stayed in that area for that amount of time. So if you're looking at advantage of taking the state board so that I get into the state, quota for colleges, there are only few handful of ones which will actually say very stringently that you have to take this. But you can take either one or the other. It will prepare you the same way for your JEE exam or for your entrance test. The same goes for biology as well. If you're looking at the NEET exam, the PCB, physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics syllabus for a CBSE for state is not very different. But you can take a call as well, depending on, I would say better to take a call on basis how well is the school teaching you those subjects. If you have better teachers in a certain area, better to go for that so that your basics are at least clear. So, Prakhar, I hope that answered the question.
Thank you, John. Thank you. So there is a question from Shreyas S. Looking at the non-rigid areas of interest for careers like astronauts, many articles suggest that if I take up different career, which I'm completely contented with, because it will cost a fortune to actually have an opportunity to become a crew member or in an airplane or maybe in a spaceship, would it be wise to take up science streams and follow closely to aerospace or the other engineering tech course in different line?
See, all astronauts are not aerospace engineers or not aeronautical engineers. That's a myth that many students are misled with. If you look at the astronauts that are designed for a certain mission, it depends on the objective of the mission. So I'll give you an example. You might have seen a movie called Gravity, right? Sandra Bullock on that movie, who was the main character, she was not an astronaut by default. She was an expert on optics. So she had gone to the International Space Station because there was a warping on a mirror, which is why it had caused calibration issues whenever you're clicking pictures of stuff which is millions of miles away. It was causing issues there. So depending on the kind of tasks at hand, astronauts are decided basis that. Of course, you have the main captain of the crew, which is going to be an aeronautical engineer, essentially, who knows how the ship functions. What are the various aspects if something goes wrong, how to fix it. But there might be a crew team which is based on a very wide variety of people. Having said that, science is absolutely essential if you want to become an astronaut as of right now. Until and unless we start taking civilians to Mars, I don't think non-science people can find themselves inside the crew. It's as of right now, it's absolutely essential for you to take the science subjects. Aeronautical engineering might not be the only way, because in graduation, very few courses in aeronautical engineering are there. You can still study mechanical engineering, electronic engineering, electrical engineering, because essentially what you have to study in the long term is aerospace engineering. Under aerospace, you have aeronautical, which is one area. Now, if you look at aeronautical engineering, you break it down. You have something called avionics. What is avionics? You've been inside the plane. You see buttons for AC, for light, for calling the air hostess. This is basically electrical systems inside the plane, right? How do you ensure that you have such a complex machine that works, that is actually flying, right? So all the electrical equipment that you have inside falls under avionics. So this is a combination of mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, electronic engineers who come together, who work in this in building a plane, right? So I would say that it might not cost you a fortune if you're really good at this, because if you can, all you have to do is go and apply there. The whole aero mission or the mission to actually get astronauts to the moon is not going to be funded from your pocket. It's always going to be funded by the government. So it might not cost you a fortune. It will cost the government and the taxpayers a fortune, but not you. As long as you're good at the subject, they'll definitely find some space where you can find yourself working in. I think for astronauts, depending on the mission, number one, and two, and it's a very, very important thing, which is fitness. If you don't have the kind of fitness, you might be a genius at the subject that you're looking at, but if you don't have the fitness to actually go to the space station, work at zero gravity levels for 6 months or 3 months or 2 weeks, you're not going to be part of the mission at all. So as of right now, it is two things. It is expertise in the area that is pertaining to that mission. Number two is fitness that is required if you want to be part of the crew member. But if you want to be a rocket engineer who designs the ship or the rocket ship, you might not be inside the crew, but you'll be designing the rocket ship. So that is a far larger number of people. So there might be a team size of about 1,500 to 4,000 people who are working on building a rocket ship. And each group might be different. There might be a couple of guys who are only working with the wiring inside. There might be a couple of guys who are only working with materials outside. Some guys are only working with the fuel tank. Some guys are only working with what type of chemicals to use in the fuel tank. So every department is segregated. So depending on your expertise, you'll be assigned a certain task. So that's how it usually works across all areas.
Thank you, John. Thank you. I was actually having another question with me. This is regarding to careers with respect to PCM stream. So for students who are studying, say, computers in their class 12, there is a certain career option available for them to go into cyber security, ethical hacking. These areas also getting pretty predominant with respect to the more technology coming in. So what career path they should actually opt for if someone wants to be an ethical hacker?
Okay. So preferably, if you take in software engineering, you can go in there because ethical hacking is not a degree course. Ethical hacking is a career. So ethical hackers essentially are basically white hat hackers who are using understanding flaws and thereby plugging in those flaws. So I'll give you an example. If you've done online transactions, the OTP is an example of an ethical hacker thinking that if I know your credit card, if I have a picture of your credit card, I can do a transaction at any time, right? I can see the CVV, I can see the numbers on the card. But the OTP that comes to your cell phone will only be the one that validates that transaction. So if you're looking at ethical hacking, you can look at preferably software engineering. You can also look at bachelor's in computer applications, BCA. You can also study BSc computer science. But as long as you're good with programming, ethical hacking will be open to you. So either you can start learning Python in 11th and 12th itself. You have computer science as an option along with your primary subjects, which is physics, chemistry, maths, and English. You can take in computer science in 11th and 12th. Start with Python right now. But whether ethical hacking will be taught to you in an engineering degree course, not so much. You will be taught programming. So ethical hackers are the ones who are able to find out loopholes and flaws in a certain program. So you need to know that program very well to find out those flaws. So essentially, cybersecurity experts or ethical hackers are the ones who actually are finding out flaws and then plugging those areas in. So today, if you look at it, as per NASSCOM, we need about 85,000 ethical hackers every year. We are not producing more than 30,000 as well. So, starting from the banking sector to our national defense, we need ethical hackers at every level. In fact, if you look at Google's website as well, they offer you up till, I think, $20,000 if you're able to hack into some of their services. So they have a prize money also that Google has. So I think a good place to start with right now is number one, logic and mathematics and programming. If you go in the route of IT and software engineering, then that's usually the most common pathway. But it doesn't mean that BCA and BSc computer science cannot do it. In fact, I know students who have taken BSc mathematics, studied a programming language separately, and then worked in cryptology, then worked in places like RAW or RAW, where they're working as consultants. So if you want to figure out if someone has done a cyber threat or tried to hack into a very sensitive area in the government's website, you want to figure out where that actually attack came from. So they use consultants there as well. And while it is good to take in the software engineering because the course is very similar to where you're getting for, but you can do it from another side as well. There are many ways for people to go. But I would say still programming and logic is fundamental. As long as you're doing that, you should be fine.
Thank you, John. Thank you. That was really helpful, actually. So thank you, John. I think this was a really fruitful session. And I hope all our participants would have taken down their notepads and pens and would have written a lot of I think must have filled 2 pages, 3 pages at least with the information you have provided. Thank you, John. That was really helpful. It was an honor and pleasure of having you here. Thank you, participants, for your presence. We wish you a great success in your future endeavor. John, anything you would like to say in the end?
No, I would just like to say thank you for giving the opportunity, Prakhar and the TCS team. It has been fantastic interacting with all of you. And if you do have any queries, you know where to go. You can go to the TCS IIM website, of course. And happy to work with all of you and happy to connect with everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Thank you.